Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I want to thank you for joining me for another Third Age Reforged replay battle. Now, I know I've been away for a little while, and well, I won't apologize for that. I had some pretty important stuff going on. Mostly it was a lot of family things, but I'm back now, and hopefully we'll start to get the channel a little bit more back on track. As you guys, many of you were very excited to see our Rise of the Witch King trailer, and that is going to be coming out very, very soon. In fact, I'm making that a priority among some of my other replays. Now, I have many replays people have sent to me during the hiatus. I'm going to get to those as quickly as possible, but I do want to put a special focus on getting at least the first couple episodes of Rise of the Witch King out. It's not entirely done yet. I think there's still a couple replays left that WK has yet to send me, but I'm sure he can clarify for me down in the comments. But yeah, I want to try and get at least a couple of episodes of that out this month, so I'm going to work hard on that. But yeah, in any case, I know many of you have some concerns about the faction rune, and while I appreciate those concerns, I do want to kind of preface this with something. Replays are not the end-all be-all. When you see a replay posted by Pixelated Apollo or UMAD or Indie Pride or myself, what you're seeing is a very small cross-section of everything that goes on in the community. It's one battle in a sea of battles. So while we always encourage people to speak up with their opinion and to give us feedback about where the direction the mod is taking and faction balance and that sort of thing, you need to be able to link that to something concrete. Simply saying, oh, I saw this faction lose a whole bunch on YouTube, well, one, that doesn't really give me a whole lot to go to, and two, you're not getting the full picture anyway, so I can't really do a whole lot with that. If you guys are new to the channel, I do work hard on balancing factions for the mod. That is my job. Everyone else has the harder job of making maps and all that other kind of stuff, but I do have the responsibility for looking at faction balance and making changes accordingly. So it is useful to speak up, but you need to be able to actually give me something to work with. So even if we don't agree, if you say runic units are far too expensive for what they do, and I'm relating this to another similar unit with a similar price that does their job but better, that is useful, and that's something that I can look at directly. But simply saying, oh, they lose in replays, well, there's a million reasons for why that might be. And again, not seeing the whole picture. So I'll shut up with this now. I'm sure you want me to get into the army comps, but it is something that I've noticed over the last little while, and simply seeing this replay in particular, or any other one, viewed on its own, that doesn't really mean a whole lot unless you can back that up with something a little bit more concrete. But in any case, the players we have today are playing in a 1v1 tournament on the Durance Folk Discord, which I'm going to put down in the description for you guys if you want to get joined up with their community. And they're also connected to the main 30 Reforged Discord, which is always in the description of my videos, so you guys can check that out in your own time. But in any case, this is a 1v1 between Lucky Hussar and Durance Folk Thorn. And let's take a look at Lucky Hussar's army here. He's got 2 units of the Variag Riders, which they're a pretty good unit. Rune doesn't have a ton of horse archers. Mostly that's there to kind of differentiate them a little bit from Khand, who focuses on them, but also to give them that kind of eastern flavor that you would expect from a faction like Rune, which is geographically located in the east. But in any case, he's got 2 of those. 1 unit over here of the Runic War Chariots, which is a unit that is pretty well unique to Rune. There is no other bow chariot in the game. There is one other chariot unit that belongs to Linden, but they are javelins. So yeah, as units go, this is actually fairly unique, and they can be very, very strong. And it seems like people aren't too sure what to make of the chariot units. If you keep them moving and you keep them charging, they can cause so much disruption and so much damage, and they can really be worth it. But if you leave them in combat for an extended period of time without having them consistently moving around and being a pain in multiple different points in the battlefield, well, then they fall apart pretty quickly and they end up not being worth the cost. So it really comes down to how you use the unit. But over here we have a unit of the Dragon's Wrath Warlords, who are just so sexy, so beautiful with their unique officer models there. You can see the golden armored clan guard. And these are 2 HP Lancers with a lot of armor and a lot of shield value. So very, very tanky indeed. They can bring a lot of value. Mom Hussar also bringing 2 units of Eastron Warriors, 1 here, 1 on the other wing. And he's got 1 unit of Eastron Clansmen, kind of a nice little fodder unit, which I believe he uses on his front line to shield his archers. And speaking of archers, he's got 2 units here of the Eastron Hunters, a couple units of the Eastron Crossbowmen, and a unit of the Balkoth Sapphire Bladesmen, who are an interesting unit. As a general rule, Javelin Bodyguards have the Throne trait, which you guys are not familiar with Medieval 2 stats. That is the trait that allowed Throne units in the past to absolutely demolish Momokill units, or Elephant class units. So Sauron and the Balrog in the future, these guys will be an excellent counter to them. It's a little bit weird that they'd be able to counter Sauron and the Balrog with javelins, but that's the nature of mechanics. We can't really separate those units from the Elephant classification, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to end up being, just because it makes the most sense for how they would move and interact with units on the battlefield. So these kinds of units, like the Javelin Bodyguards, will exist as a counter to your large, monstrous foes when more of them arrive on the battlefield. But right now, they are very good against Momokill in particular. Mobasar bringing a solid core here of 3 units of Logamprin, who are halberds. Very, very strong. We've also got a nice little shield value there, 2 shield value. And, yeah, they do a lot of damage as well. And they've got some decent numbers as well. Over here we got 2 units of the Look Flag Room. I think it's 2. There's one here, one over here, and they can't hide, so I'm pretty sure that's all that the flag room we're going to see in the battlefield today. And that just about does it for Lucky Hasar's army, so let's go ahead and see what his opponent, DF Thorn, is bringing to the battle today. Alright, and before we look at DF Thorn's army, I do want to mention I made a little bit of an omission here. We've got a very sexy unit of Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen on the field for Lucky Hasar, who are supremely damaging. They have very low ammunition, so you need to choose their targets wisely, but whatever they shoot at, they will pretty well erase it from existence. So, yeah, very, very strong unit there. But in any case, yes, DF Thorn's army. We have the forces of Arthedain, which I've heard some rumblings about as well. People haven't seen very much of Arthedain. We're going to get to see them today, and I'm going to be seeing a lot more of them in the future once Rise of the Witch King starts to come out. But DF Thorn has brought some Arthedain marksmen here. I believe he's got 2 units out in front, and they have their armor upgrades. Now, unlike Gondor, Arthedain, I feel the need to mention this because they ended up getting a faction bonus. Previously, they didn't have any. They were meant to be a kind of jack-of-all-trades entry faction. But they didn't have a set of faction bonuses, and now they have them. And mostly they focus around their cavalry. So Arthedain's cavalry tends to be far better than Gondor's. They are a little bit more Lancer-oriented, but they do have some really strong Dunedain units as well. So the Arthedain Dunedain units really stand out as being exceptional. But in any case, they have a little bit less armor upgrades than, say, Gondor, but they do have this beautiful little breastplate here that was added in by the team. I think that's a recurring model from 3rd Age. It looks really, really nice. And, yeah, so they've got about 9 armor value, I believe, right off the bat, which is really strong. And behind them, we've got some Evendim archers, who are a militia tier archer, but like the Gondorian equivalent, which is, I believe, the Ramessekor garrison, yes, something like that. These guys have shields. It's not a huge shield, and they only get the half value because it is technically on their back, but it is a shield value that they can take advantage of, which makes them a nice little tar pit kind of archer unit that you can use to expend your enemy's valuable ranged resources in a skirmish fight, which can be useful when fighting against, say, Elven factions, for example, because of their numbers and because of that shield value. Back here, we've got some Fornus Defenders, which is a spear unit mixed in with some Arthedain pikemen, and you can see, I think the pikemen have their armor upgrade as well. And the Fornus Defenders just look like that all the time. So they've got about 9 base armor value. Very, very nice indeed. Over here we have some Anuminos Gate Guards, who are a really useful unit. And they're placed in the center of the line very, very wisely because they are an Inspire unit. So they're going to help keep the rest of the line solid, acting as a very, very good anchor. And they only cost about 900 or so to bring. Over here we got some Dunedain Peacekeepers. I believe there's 2 units of them, one here, one on the other end. Yes, indeed. So a very defensive army here from DF Thorn, and that's not a terrible idea when playing as Arthedain. As I mentioned, their cavalry is quite strong, so if you're going to use your infantry as the anvil to your cavalry's hammer, well, that's very much a viable strategy as Arthedain. And the units here, like the Dunedain Peacekeepers, as I mentioned, are quite strong. I believe these guys have like 10 or 11 damage, and they're a little bit more lightly armored, but yeah, the damage that they can do is quite excellent. So yeah, very strong unit there. And behind them, we got some Evendim Spearmen, very cheap, kind of along the lines of a unit like the whatchamacallem, the Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen. There you go. Yes, they can be very, very useful for their shield value. Much like the Greenwatch Garrison Spearmen, they have a high shield value, and they're high numbers as well. And behind them, we got some Dunedain Mounted Company, who are actually quite large in terms of their unit size for a Dunedain unit. And they've got some pretty hefty damage. I think they've got about 10 damage in melee. As all Lancers, they have a little bit of a penalty against their cavalry, but they do not have a penalty against wargs. So these guys, with their numbers, can actually stand reasonably well toe-to-toe with a warg unit. So while Arthedain doesn't have melee cavalry or spear cavalry as such, the cavalry that they do have can be useful against certain counters from evil factions and things like that. And against their lancers, of course, they will do exceptionally well thanks to their numbers and their high stats. Over here we have the Wardens of the North, by far one of the most potent anti-cavalry tools in the game. Again, another ace in the hole for Arthedain that kind of makes up for the fact that they don't have melee or spear cavalry. These archers are armor-piercing, and they're quite accurate, and they have a really high range. So a very, very nasty unit, and you can use them to pick off enemy knights or heavy wargs and things like that with relative impunity once you park them behind your line of spears and defend them well on your wings. Over here we got some more Evendom Spearmen, then we've got some Dunedain Mounted Company, and now there could be some hidden units around here. I think there is a unit of Dunedain Rangers, who are deadly for their BP, but I think there's also a unit of the Grey Company, who are Mounted Rangers, and very, very deadly. So Arthedain has a lot going for it in terms of its cavalry, a lot of utility, but again, not a lot of like brute kind of anti-cavalry straightforward kind of strength. But in any case, that does it for Arthedain's army comps. Let's go ahead and jump into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. Now, as you might expect, given the amount of skirmishing tools that Rune has brought for its disposal today on the battlefields, we've got the Eastern Hunters that are going to be opening up against the Arthedain Marksmen. But I think the superior formation here of Thorn's Marksmen and their higher armor values is going to be able to see them to victory in this kind of fight. As you can see, a lot of the Eastern Hunters are quite blobbed up, and any arrows that miss the first couple ranks are going to soar overhead and hit the guys in behind them. So it's risky. He's got the numbers here, of course, with the Eastern Hunters to absorb some casualties, but if they die too quickly, well, then the Arthedain Marksmen are going to have quite a lot of ammunition left over. And what do you know? We got some hidden units here. Our first hidden unit got some Band and Brass Archers, who are an interesting kind of Hobbit unit. The Hobbits are able to hide everywhere for Arthedain, and they are quite fast. And the Band and Brass Archers in particular have 6 missile damage, making them a high-tier archer pick. So they're not super expensive, and they can hide anywhere. It's a nice little lightly armored archer pick that can be used to great effect. As you can see here, Rune wasn't really expecting it, and a handful of those Variag mercenaries are going to pay the ultimate price for their recklessness. And as the skirmish fight goes on here, we're going to go ahead and fast forward things just a wee bit. Ooh, a little bit of lag there. Sorry about that, guys. See these front hunters moving forward, trying to get a little bit closer. They may... Ooh, the lag is really not making me happy. They may be trying to move forward to possibly shield for the Eastron crossbowmen, if that's what Lucky Hussar ends up trying to do. But I'm not sure why he would move them forward like this. It seems a little bit odd to me. And the Eastron hunters are, of course, going to be paying the price here for this very strange and sudden relocation. A lot of Eastron hunters just dead on the field, but this is kind of what they're there for. Maybe inflict some light casualties on other enemies in a skirmish fight. If you can keep them alive, they can do a decent amount of damage against later armed troops, but in this particular setting, they're here to die, and they're here to use up as much of that ammunition as possible, because every arrow that goes into these Eastron Hunters is an arrow that's not going in to, of course, the Eastron Crossbowmen or the Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen in the back there. Now, it seems like we got a little bit of a cavalry fight here. The Variag Mercenary Riders just giving it to the Mounted Company as they move forward. Now, the big drawback of the Mounted Company is that they are quite lightly armored. They are very fast. They're about 1.2 speed, but 1.2 speed to, I think, the Variag Mercenary Riders 1.1 speed, so they will be able to catch up here, but of course those lower shield and lower armor values will tell against them. You can see a lot of them dead in the background there. Lucky Hussar quite deftly maneuvering his cavalry here. It's kind of like a bait and switch. He was moving this way, made the United Mounted Company kind of commit to a melee fight, and it slowed them down enough for him to get away with his mercenary riders. And now he's going to be bringing this Mounted Company in range of, you guessed it, the Eastern Crossbowmen, which can be used to great effect against those Dunedain Mounted Company. So the Variag Mercenary Riders ended up getting caught here. It's a little bit of lapse in micro, I think, on the part of Lucky Hussar. And you can see them really cutting these guys down quite quickly. You can see the quality disparity here between these two cavalry units. It seems like the Eastern Crossbowmen are going to manage to get one volley off, but they're not really doing as much damage as I think they might have otherwise been able to. Well, what do you know? The Dunedain Mounted Company, with their high speed, managed to get out of there before these Variag Mercenary Riders or rather the Eastern Crossbowmen were able to make those mounted company pay for attacking the mercenary riders that close to the line. What do we got over here? It looks like a frontal charge here from some of those Dunai mounted company, but it really didn't work out too well for him. I can see a lot of the mounted company dead on the ground there, and they would have been charging right into the front of the crossbowmen. So I think that's probably where a lot of these dead here are coming from. It seems like Thorn's going to be mounting a second charge here. I don't know if this is advised against the mounted company, given how poorly the last charge turned out for him. Now, it's not necessarily a bad idea to use your cavalry offensively against archers like this, and far be it from me to second-guess his decisions in the moment. So obviously, it's a good thing to even out the skirmish fight here, and give his marksmen the advantage, and they'll be able to potentially exploit that against the crossbowmen if they can sweep these bowmen from the field. But given how poorly the initial charge went, and how poorly this engagement here is going, it really doesn't seem worth it. Looks like the Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen actually fired a small volley there into the mounted company, and they're down to less than half their strength. So the Eastern Hunters are gone, and DF Thorn has accomplished his objective, and now the Easterlings are going to have to come to him with crossbowmen and things like that, things that are vulnerable to his archers. So whether or not this turns out to be a good idea will remain to be seen. But that's an expensive unit. They're about 850 or 875 or so to use to simply wipe out these Eastern Hunters. But we'll see if that accomplishes a strategic objective for DF Thorn. Mounted company over here, it looks like maybe they got a little bit closer than they should have to the crossbowmen, and indeed they charged down the crossbowmen, but the crossbows were ready and waiting for them, and pew pew, many of them are dead, lying face down in a pool of their own blood. So Arthurian cavalry here has been quite heavily expended on maybe not the best engagements, but I suppose we'll have to see how it goes for DF Thorn in the future. Variag Mercenary Riders here, still, this company is still fairly healthy, able to do a fair amount of damage. It looks like Arthurane is now going to be the one that decides to move forward. Not too much, just a little bit there, probably trying to get within range of the Z-Strong crossbowmen so that he can deal a fair amount of damage to them. It looks like Lucky Hussar might try a bit of a counterattack here with his Eastern Clansman leading the way. He's going to try and catch those Arthurian marksmen, maybe even out in front of the pike wall, and hold them down, hold them in place while he moves his crossbowmen forward. So we're going to see a big general charge here on the part of Lucky Hussar, and I think that's probably why. He's going to try and scream with some of the rest of his army, but now is the time for him to take to the offensive, especially since Arthurian has managed to wipe out his only really long-range defensive option in the form of his Sea-Strong Hunters. DF Thorn going for one more cheeky volley. Oh, maybe not. No, he's trying to summon his Arthurian marksman back behind the line. Weren't really able to do a whole ton, but now while these units are repositioning, those crossbows are actually moving into position, and that's a pretty big win for him. So Arthurian moving forward does allow Lucky Hussar a little bit of wiggle room here, because now he's able to move his important assets like the crossbowmen into position. He can begin to bombard this front line with relative impunity from the Arthurian archers. Of course, the Evendim archers are still here. Nice little layered missile defense from Thorn, but I think this is going to ultimately be kind of a strategic one-up here from Rune. Yeah, you can see this is actually really smart. Now let's talk about this for a moment. Not just charging straight on into a pike wall because it's there is a great idea. I see people do it very often. I'm sure there's good reasons behind that, wanting to occupy his front line, not wanting to potentially end up surrounded and things like that. But what Lucky Hussar has done is he's concentrated his infantry on his wings here. He's going to try and actually circumvent the pike line, which is by far the most deadly part of the Arthurian infantry, and he's going to go around to the flanks with a lot of his infantrymen. You can see now the Arthurdane pike wall is going to be forced to move forward, and he's left his center wide open, although he is defending it with a little bit of clansman support here so that Arthurian can't just rush through the gap and engage his crossbowmen right away. So, yeah, really nice tactics here on the part of Lucky Hussar. You really have to give it to him. And now a lot of these units are actually going to have to turn the other cheek to these units of crossbowmen, so they're going to be able to fire basically directly down the length of a unit known as enfilading fire, and yeah, it's going to be really deadly for the men of Arthurdane. Over here, the Arthurdane pikemen moving in to support the Evendim spearmen and hold back the tide of Rune Golden boys. Got some Eastern Warriors charging into the front of the Arthurian Pikemen. That's going to be a no-brainer for the Arthurian Pikemen, but there are some Sapphire Bladesmen nearby that can be used to great effect. And remains to be seen what he's going to use them on. The Wardens of the North would be a good target, as with the Illuminati Gatekeepers, but it seems like the Crossbowmen kind of have that in the bags. Now the Illuminati Gate Guards are getting picked to pieces by the crossbows, and now the Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen have opened up on them. You can see the amount of damage that they can do here, which is why this unit has very low ammunition, because if they could do this for days, well, that would really not be all that fun or well balanced, would it? Over here, Eastern Clansmen doing okay against the Arthurian heavily armored infantry. Eventually they will lose out here, even with the Eastern support. But the pikemen, especially against the halberds too, the pikemen outrange the halberds, so the runic infantry is at a bit of a disadvantage here, engaging the pikemen head on like this, which is, I think, what Lucky Hussar wanted to avoid, but Thorn is not really giving them a whole lot of choice at the moment. Got some Dunai Rangers in the back there. We'll go and see what they're up to in just a second. Loke Flag Rim and some Low Camp Rim battering down the Arthedain Spear Wall here. Even Spearmen supporting the Dunai Peacekeepers. Says the defeat is certain, but honestly, the Dunai Peacekeepers are good enough that I think that they can probably turn this fight around. We got over here. The Dunai Mounts Company being picked to pieces by the Variag Mercenary Riders, and it doesn't seem like the rest of the cavalry is faring all that well either. Got some Grey Company here, going to be useful, but against a unit like the Dragon's Wrath Warlords, they're not so strong. The Dunai Mounts Company will do reasonably against Dragon's Wrath Warlords, but the extra HP that the Warlords have, in addition to their large armor values, is going to see them through to the finish ultimately. However, it is going to be able to hold them down long enough for him to potentially fire into the rear of the Bandit Archers. That could be a bit of a pain for the Dragon Wrath Warlords, since they won't be getting their shield bonus. And yeah, so it's interesting. It's a bit of anybody's game right now on the wings. In the center, the Wardens of the North and the Arthedain Marksmen being engaged by the Runic War Chariots, really just being thrown in here to try and keep these skirmishers as busy as possible and to limit their effectiveness, which would be a really big problem for units like, say, his Dragon's Wrath Warlords. If these Wardens of the North were free to fire into them, well, they wouldn't last very long at all. And what do we got over here? Dunai Rangers. Now that's a big problem too. These Runic War Chariots can get in there and just keep these guys occupied and give the Runic infantry time enough to use their skirmishers to win the infantry fight. Well, that's going to be awesome for Rune. And these Dunai Rangers can turn around an engagement like you wouldn't believe. The body piercing is very, very strong. So yeah. Pretty important unit there to keep locked down. Over here at the Dunai Mounted Company, a frontal charge here, a very nice frontal charge. A little bit of lag there. Into the front of these Dragon's Wrath Crossbowmen. They're out of ammunition, however, but yeah, they are going to take some pretty serious damage here from the front. Oh, nasty! They turn their back, so they're going to be going. That damage is going to go straight to their armor value, and they're going to take a lot of damage off that charge. Valkoth Sapphire Tribesmen, or Bladesmen rather, I believe we're trying to fire into the flank of the Dunai Mounted Company as they move forward, but ultimately they were able to connect and do a lot of damage to the crossbowmen, who are actually quite able melee combatants. So losing them like this in an infantry fight that Rune is not really destined to win in this case is that's a pretty big blow. But the crossbows, I think, are going to be able to do a fair amount of damage to them. Another volley there from the Sapphire Bladesman is enough to almost send this unit running for the hills. Nice big charge there into the Sapphire Bladesman is actually going to take down quite a lot of them. So ultimately, this one unit here of the Dunai Mounted Company really brought a lot of value for Lucky Hussar, or not Lucky Hussar's side, for D.F. Thorn's side. But they are going to break under the pressure there. A little bit of friendly fire, which makes their sacrifice just that much more worth it. But yeah, they end up getting Last Samurai, and that's going to be all she wrote for them. Over here, got some Runic War Chariots, looking like maybe they want to charge into the rear of some of these Fornus Terrain defenders. That would be very, very nasty indeed. Dunai Peacekeepers about to get charged in the rear here by those Runic War Chariots, and it seems like on D.F. Thorn's right wing, things are looking really, really ugly for him. Ooh, a nasty charge there, possibly going to send those Dunai Peacekeepers running for the hills. One thing I forgot to mention about the Chariots is that I believe they cause fear as well, so even the stalwart Dunai can be sent fleeing because of a rear charge from a unit like that. Over here, Dunai Rangers. Don't know what they're going after. Dragon's Wrath Warlords, probably not the best idea. Great company. Also firing into the rear of the Dragon's Wrath Warlords, but it's not going to be enough. Bandit Brass Archers, I think, would be a little bit better suited for that. And then some of the Ranger, like especially the more mobile Great Company, could be brought around to the rear of some of these Low Camp Rim and Low Flag Rim, and that would even out the infantry fight. But over on D.F. Thorn's left wing, seems to be winning the fight regardless. But there are Sapphire Bladesmen, and now that Lucky Hussar has turned his crossbowmen's attention onto this big blob, well, their victory, I think, is going to be short-lived. What do we got here? Runic War Chariots. Going again after the Wardens of the North. Yeah, they won't win that fight in just a straight 1v1, but they are disrupting them, preventing them from firing. And altogether, I have to say that Lucky SR has done a great job at shutting down some really important assets here from Arthedain. Their infantry was relying on their defensive formation. They were very defensive in nature with a lot of pikes and a lot of spears, but Lucky SR made them come forward. Now in the back, where some of their stronger archers are able to be brought to bear against the runic lines, as the formation kind of breaks up, he's managed to keep them all busy, and his crossbows are basically untouched. They are unscathed, which is not something that you would expect in a fight like this. You'd expect those archers to be firing double time on a unit like this and cutting them down to limit their effectiveness, but instead it's the other way around, where the Arthedain infantry got absolutely destroyed by the Eastern crossbowmen, and the missile troops were not really able to do anything about it. Over here, Rune doing okay. Seems like they might be getting surrounded, and we could start to see these units fall away pretty quickly. But over on the other wing, how we doing? The Arthedain units are holding out quite well, but this Phalanx is about to be completely encircled. And over on DF Thorn's far right wing, his forces have been completely shattered. The Dunedain Peacekeepers are now in full retreat, and that leaves his line open to being rolled up, or to his skirmishers being destroyed once and for good. Dunedain Rangers here, poor Dunedain Rangers, down to about 18. Constant cavalry charges from those Dragon's Wrath warlords that just DF Thorn did not seem to have an answer to. He wasn't able to use his Wardens of the North because Lucky SR kept them busy with the chariots. Altogether, this is just looking pretty ugly. Now the Band of Brass archers, I don't know what they were shooting at, possibly at the crossbows, trying to deal with them. Yeah, it seems like the crossbows now they're going to get charged down with the Dragon's Wrath warlords. A nice charge here that's going to connect and do a ton of damage. Band of Brass archers getting absolutely flattened, and considering routing, they have decent morale. But yeah, shock damage like that is not something these guys stand up well to. Wardens of the North trying to get a little bit of distance. I think we see those bows coming out. We might see them start to fire, probably at the Dragon's Wrath warlords, which is what they should have been doing the whole time. What do we got over here? Great Company charging into some Eastern crossbowmen. Great Company aren't terrible. Honestly, they're not bad. So against crossbowmen, who have pretty low stats, they'll do reasonably well. But the crossbowmen are actually able to fire point blank into the Great Company, and that is the one thing that they do not have a lot of, and that is missile defense. So a unit like this can be quite easily destroyed, and it seems like they're out of ammunition anyway. So yeah, you having to use them as basically lancers or melee cavalry to shut down the crossbows is not great, as a move of desperation. Rear charge there from the Great Company. Looks like they took down some of the crossbows. Those crossbows are going to just ping-pong from the Band of Brass archers into the rear off some Dunedain Peacekeepers. And that's going to destroy the last anchor that DF Thorn had for his left wing. So he's lost on the right. It seems like he's losing in the center. And now he's lost his other wing as well. So I think it's pretty obvious who this fight is going to go to at this point. Some Sapphire Bladesmen and some Dragon's Wrath crossbows. Everybody just going to town with their two-handed weapons here against some Arthedain pikemen, but they are being held off because they're only able to attack uniquely from the front. So you really see the power of pikes here, but I don't think this is going to last for too much longer. What do we got here? Wardens of the North. I don't even know what they're shooting at this point. I guess the crossbows, but there's not enough of them. That's not really what a unit like that is meant to do. I think they're being targeted now. No, actually, that's the Great Company getting shot from the rear by the crossbowmen. The Great Company have done a pretty good job at just keeping these Dragon's Wrath warlords contained, but at this point, it's too little, too late. They decide to break off there and go against the Variag mounted bowmen, and that's going to allow the Dragon's Wrath warlords to get another nice charge here against the Band of Brass archers, further holding up that Arthedain skirmish line. So this is not great. And actually, attacking those Variag mounted bowmen kept these guys within range of the crossbows. So now I think that about over half the unit of what was remaining. There's about 18 of them. Now there's 6. Now there's only 6. Well, this is not looking great for Arthedain. And now with the victorious troops from the right wing, got to come in, surround what remains of Arthedain. I think we're going to start to see some breaking here. Yes, indeed. Got to go ahead and fast forward things now. Wardens of the North are really the only ones left at this point. I mean, there's some Band of Brass archers, and I'm not sure what they're shooting at. I'm just firing into something. Some part of the nebulous blob here of the victorious runic forces. They're going to get charged down by some flag rim, followed up by another charge there from some more runic infantry. And these guys, these hobbits, they are brave, but they're not that brave. And we're going to see them start to rout here momentarily. The Gamp Rim pushing their way through the line. And over here we've got the Wardens of the North being swiftly defeated by some armor-piercing troops here from Rune. Farewell, hobbits. Go ahead and kick into 6 times. Witness the end here for the Arthedain troops. And that's going to be it with the final cavalry charge there. That is the last nail in the coffin of the Arthedain army. And that is game over. And it looks like Lucky Hussar is going to be moving on to the next round of the tournament. So good game to both of those players. Obviously, the Rune player really had a very strong strategy moving into this, and one of the things you probably noted about their army is that it's not just golden boys. There's a whole lot of moving parts to the runic war machine, and Lucky Hussar utilized them all pretty well, perfectly in this game, and yeah, Arthedain was just not able to counter them. Their forces end up being split up, surrounded, and ultimately destroyed or picked off by the runic skirmishers. So yeah, you just really see the power of Rune here. It is not necessarily the direct, straightforward approach. That can work. It really depends on who you're playing against, and Rune's got a lot of options, so you need to be able to tailor your build quite well to whatever situation you think that you're going to be facing. But in any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I have preached enough for this episode. I'm sure you're all sick of it, so I'll see you next time. Take care. Oh, right, sorry about that, guys. I know many of you like to see this, so here you go. Quick little snapshot there of the runic infantry and the crossbows and all that good stuff and what they managed to accomplish on the battlefield today, and that's going to be it. Take care.